will be protected by God.
And welcome back to Atreyu News. ISIS abandons Syria. The Islamic State has set their new sights on the Philippines after they lost ground in Syria and Iraq. From the NBC News, a video released by ISIS asks would-be fighters to go to the Philippines instead of Syria and Iraq, the latest sign that the terror group is shifting its recruiting tactics as it loses ground to the coalition forces in the Middle East. Well, that's fantastic news. Trump said we would wipe them from the earth. The 7-minute English-language video released by the official ISIS media operation late last month includes messages from several fighters in the southern Philippines and scenes from battles with government troops near the city of Marawi, including the pillaging of a Catholic church. One of the fighters calls on Muslims in East Asia, specifically those in Indonesia, Malaysia, Brunei, Thailand, and Singapore, to migrate to fight alongside the ISIS-linked militants in the Philippines. A militant identified as Abul Yaman from Marawi proclaims, "Come forth to the land of jihad, perform Hira, come forth to Marawi." Now, if they're losing ground in the Middle East and being wiped from the earth, somehow I don't think going to the Philippines would be the best idea, based on the fact that this American general showed the Philippines how to deal with terrorists. In the early 1900s, an American general by the name of Blackjack Pershing showed the entire world how you deal with Islamicist terrorists. In one instance, Graham explained in an interview, U.S. soldiers captured 12 Muslims. They killed 6 of them with bullets dipped into the fat of pigs. After that, Graham said the U.S. soldiers wrapped the Muslim rebels in funeral shrouds made of pigskin and buried them face down so they could not see Mecca. Then they poured the entrails of the pigs over them. The other 6 were forced to watch, and that was the end of the insurrection on Mindanao, Graham noted. So, these Islamicists are so superstitious that using their own weapons against them would prove to work. Now, another reason why I think it would be foolish for ISIS to try to cause havoc in the Philippines is based on the fact that their president, Duterte, kills the criminals of the Philippines with no guilt whatsoever. Let's take a look at what he said to the criminals right before last Christmas.
Alam ninyo, ako'y tao lamang. Kaya binabati ko pa rin, Merry Christmas. Kayong mga durugista, magdanakaw, mga korap, mga kriminal, at ninyong nagpapahirap sa Pilipino. Kaya kung ayaw ninyong minto at patuloy pa rin ang karahasan, ito na ang huli ninyong Merry Christmas.
Now, speaking of ISIS, let's look at what Western ISIS, Antifa, is up to these days. Breaking, Bank of America is boarding up. I wonder why. Antifa plans to riot at UC Berkeley are scaring businesses. Stores are closing shop ahead of Ben Shapiro's speech. From Luke Rudowski. Wow, Bank of America is boarding up their windows ahead of Ben Shapiro's speech at Berkeley right now. Let's take a look at this sign here. So on the sign of one of the stores says, "We will be closing at 5 p.m. today. For the safety of our staff and customers, we apologize for any inconvenience. We will reopen tomorrow at 9 a.m. in accordance with our normal store hours. Thank you, management." Now, is it the right and the quote-unquote alt-right causing this? No, it's the left and alt-left. Violence and the left go hand in hand. A lot of stores around UC Berkeley are closing early today and boarding up as a precaution during Ben at Berkeley, Ben Shapiro. From Dinesh D'Souza, are you concerned about Ben Shapiro breaking any windows? No, it's the left-wing fascists who are making you do this. Here's a video from Tim Pool. Video, police preparing for Ben Shapiro's event at UC Berkeley. It is, well, it's not funny, but it is shocking how they always call the right or the people that believe in freedom and liberty exactly what they are. They are the fascists. They are the ones that are trying to censor free speech.
All right, so we are at just outside of Sproul Hall, and there's a ton of cops straight ahead. I don't know if you can see them right there. The police have just started locking the whole event down, so I'm not sure if we're going to see a ton of violence. I guess we'll find out. The protest is in another 2 hours. Stay tuned.
So we see on this sign, it says, "No Ben Shapiro. The problem is not campus thuggery. The problem is fascist intellectual thuggery. If people speak out against white supremacy, misogyny, xenophobia, and fascism." Well, I think they left a few out, like stand against, anti-gay, anti-transgenderism, anti-man, anti-family, anti-America. So they left a few out, surprisingly. But let's take a look at what Ben Shapiro, the white supremacist spewing quote-unquote hate speech, has to say about Antifa. And now we see why it's so clear why they hate him with the utmost intensity.
I watched those very closely, much more closely than you people watched it. And you have, you had a group on one side that was bad, and you had a group on the other side that was also very violent. And nobody wants to say that, but I'll say it right now. You had a group on the other side that came charging in without a permit, and they were very, very violent.
Okay, so the fact that Trump put so much focus on what he called the alt-left here, and I assume he means Antifa, when he talks about them, had the left up in arms. They're saying, why aren't you focusing more on the white supremacist rally and the fact that a white supremacist actually was responsible for murder, rammed a car into 20 people at that particular rally on Saturday? Why are you focusing so much on the alt-left? I think that it is perfectly appropriate for the President of the United States to talk about the violence of Antifa, which has been violent in Seattle. They were violent in Seattle again yesterday. Violent in Berkeley. Violent in Sacramento. Violent in Richmond. Violent yesterday. Okay, so this is tape from yesterday. This is still in Charlottesville. They're at the courthouse. And here's Antifa getting into it with the police.
Stop resisting! Stop resisting!
Okay, so Antifa has been violent and consistently violent for a long time now, and what I'm seeing from the left is an attempt by the left to pretend that Antifa are the great heroes of this story.
And more of history erasing occurring right this second. This is happening now. Crane removes Robert E. Lee statue from Dallas Park. So as we see, as I had discussed before, erasing our history. So we and our children and their children would be doomed to repeat it, but this time as a communist takeover. Let's take a look.
Breaking news out of Texas now. Workers in Dallas are removing a statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee. There's a lot of police there, as you might imagine, in these scenarios. The city of Dallas is now set to pay up to $450,000 to get rid of the statue. That's according to the mayor. He called it a decision about morality, but critics say it's a waste of money and that the city officials are erasing history. That crane you saw there, well, that was part of the reason that it wasn't removed earlier, because the city council actually passed a resolution, an emergency resolution saying get rid of the statue, and then someone filed a lawsuit. A judge issued a restraining order saying no, keep the statue for now, and that expired. And then that crane on the left-hand side was coming up from Houston and got into a fatal accident on the way from Houston to Dallas that delayed the removal even further. But now, as you can see, they're putting the chain around the Robert E. Lee statue. That's at Lee Park in Dallas. They are set to take this thing away and take it to a local museum.
Breaking. Japan ready to take action against North Korea. Well, how many warnings are they supposed to get exactly? I mean, where I come from, 3 strikes you're out. Not 15, 16 strikes, and we'll see what happens. Japanese official says the country's government will take appropriate response to North Korea firing missile, and it is in contact with the United States. Well, They've been testing our resolve for far too long. A physical action I would support 100%. God bless America.